Rain clawed at the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Rollings Tower penthouse office, like something desperate to get in. Or perhaps something desperate to wash away what was about to happen inside. The office itself was a monument to cold ambition. Italian marble floors stretched beneath furniture that cost more than most families earn in a decade. A Rothko painting hung behind the mahogany desk, not because Jose Rollings appreciated art, but because owning a $12 million canvas told other men exactly where they stood in his presence. Beneath it. Jose stood at that window now, his reflection a ghost against the Manhattan skyline. 43 years old. Silver threading through dark hair, a jawline that boardrooms had learned to fear. He held a document in his hands, and his knuckles had gone white around it. Mary Okonkwo sat in the chair across from his desk, her hands folded over the swell of her belly. She was 26, with skin the color of burnished copper and braids pulled back into a neat bun. Her dress was simple, clean. The kind of dress a woman wears when she cannot afford to buy dignity, so she carries it in her spine instead. She had been carrying it for 7 months now. Triplets. Jose's voice was quiet. The dangerous kind of quiet, the kind that comes before something breaks. He turned from the window, and his eyes were glacial. You were supposed to give me an heir. 1 child. 1. Mary's voice remained steady. The doctors explained this can happen with the fertility treatments. It was not something I could control, Mr. Rollings. Control? He laughed, but there was no warmth in it. The sound was dry and hollow, like wind through an empty cathedral. I paid for control. I paid for precision. I paid for 1 healthy child to carry my name, and you— He threw the contract. The pages struck Mary's shoulder, scattering across her lap like wounded birds. She flinched, but she did not cry out. She had learned long ago that some men feed on the tears of others, and she refused to nourish this one. Jose stalked toward her, each footstep echoing against the marble. I ordered an heir, not a litter. Do you understand what you've done? Do you understand the complications, the cost, the absolute inefficiency of this situation? They are children. Mary's voice cracked, but only slightly. Not a business transaction. That is exactly what they are. Jose leaned down, close enough that she could smell the bourbon on his breath, the cold mint of his cologne. That is exactly what you are. A transaction. A vessel I rented for 9 months. And vessels do not get to make decisions. He straightened, smoothing his tie with practiced hands. You will go to Dr. Hartman tomorrow. He will perform a selective reduction. We will keep one. The strongest one. The rest— He waved his hand as if dispersing smoke. The rest are simply excess inventory. Mary felt the babies move inside her. A foot pressed against her ribs. A tiny fist rolled beneath her palm. 3 heartbeats that had become her entire universe. She stood. It took effort. 7 months of carrying 3 lives had reshaped her body, but it had also forged something inside her. Something iron, something ancient, something that remembered generations of women who had refused to break. No. Jose blinked. In 43 years of living, very few people had ever said that word to him. Excuse me? I said no. Mary gathered the scattered contract pages from the floor, from her lap, from the chair. She stacked them neatly, because she was a woman who had been raised to leave things better than she found them. And she placed them on his desk. I will not kill my children because they inconvenience you. Your children? Jose's laugh was sharp enough to cut glass. You seem confused about your role here. You are the oven. I am the chef. Those ingredients belong to me. Mary looked at him. Really looked at him. past the tailored suit and the expensive watch and the penthouse that touched the clouds. She looked at the hollow thing wearing a man's face, and she understood that no amount of money could fill what was empty inside him. Then you get nothing. She turned and walked toward the door. Her steps were slow. Her body was heavy with new life, but her shoulders were straight and her chin was high. You walk out that door, and you are finished, Jose's voice thundered across the marble. I will destroy you. I will make sure you never work in this city again. You will be nothing. You will have nothing. You will come crawling back to me. Mary paused at the door. She did not turn around. Mr. Rollings, she said softly, I have survived things you cannot imagine. I have crossed oceans and buried dreams and rebuilt myself from dust. I am not afraid of you. The door clicked shut behind her, and Jose Rollings stood alone in his penthouse office, surrounded by millions, possessing everything, and holding absolutely nothing at all. 7 months earlier, the world had been a different place for Mary Okonkwo. She had come to America with 2 suitcases and a dream stitched together from her grandmother's prayers. Martha Okonkwo, Mama Martha, as the village called her, had raised Mary from the age of 6 when a fever had taken both her parents in the same cruel week. Mama Martha had fed her from a garden that barely yielded enough, had walked 4 miles to fetch water so Mary could wash for school, had sold her own wedding bracelet, the only gold she had ever owned, so Mary could buy books. Education, Mama Martha would say, her weathered hands cupping Mary's face. Education is the door. You must walk through it, my child. Walk through it and send the light back to us. Mary had walked through. A scholarship to a university in Lagos, a work visa to America, a job cleaning offices in Manhattan, where she scrubbed toilets and vacuumed carpets and pretended not to hear when executives spoke about her like she was furniture. She sent money home every month. Every single month. Even when it meant eating rice for 14 days straight. Even when it meant walking 40 blocks because the subway fare would cut into Mama Martha's medicine fund. The call came on a Tuesday. The doctors say her heart is failing. Her cousin's voice was thin and frightened across the ocean. They say she needs surgery, American surgery, the kind we do not have here. They say it will cost $60,000. Mary had $412 in her savings account. She worked 3 jobs and still barely covered rent in the Bronx apartment she shared with 2 other women. $60,000 might as well have been $60 million. She prayed. She fasted. She applied for loans that rejected her because she had no credit history, no assets, no collateral, except the desperate love of a granddaughter. The flyer appeared on a bulletin board at the community center, tucked between advertisements for English classes and immigration lawyers. Surrogacy opportunity. Healthy women needed. Significant compensation. Discretion guaranteed. Mary had stared at that flyer for 11 minutes. She knew because she counted every heartbeat, every breath, every argument her conscience made against what she was considering. Her body, her womb, her sacred space. $60,000. Mama Martha's failing heart. She took the flyer. The Rollings mansion in the Hamptons was a different universe. Mary had never seen so much white. White walls, white furniture, white flowers in white vases. It felt less like a home, and more like a mausoleum where living people had accidentally wandered in. Clarissa Rollings received her in the sunroom. She was blonde and angular, with cheekbones that could cut fruit and eyes that assessed Mary the way one might assess livestock. African. Clarissa said the word like she was identifying a species. Jose mentioned you were ethnic. Nigerian. Mary kept her voice neutral. From Lagos. Clarissa circled her slowly, examining. Good bone structure, healthy weight. Childbearing hips, obviously. Tell me, your family, are there any genetic abnormalities? Defects? History of mental illness? Mary thought of Mama Martha, whose mind was sharp as a blade even as her heart failed. Of her mother, who had sung like an angel. Of her father, who could calculate sums faster than any machine. No defects, she said quietly. Just people. Clarissa missed the edge in her voice entirely. She was too busy examining her own reflection in the window. Jose wants an heir, someone to continue his legacy, inherit the company, all of that tedious dynasty nonsense. She waved a manicured hand. I told him I would give him one, but pregnancy is simply barbaric. The weight gain, the stretch marks, the absolute destruction it does to one's figure. She shuddered delicately. No, thank you. That's what people like you are for. Mary absorbed the insult, filed it away, remembered that Mama Martha's heart was failing 8,000 miles away, and pride was a luxury she could not afford. The compensation, $75,000, half now, half upon delivery. Clarissa was already bored with the conversation. You'll stay in the guest house during the pregnancy. No visitors. No ethnic cooking that stinks up the main house, and obviously complete discretion. No one can know that my child came from... She gestured vaguely at Mary's body. Well, you understand. Mary understood perfectly. She understood that she was invisible to these people. A tool to be used and discarded. A vessel, as Jose would later call her. She also understood that $75,000 would pay for her grandmother's surgery, with enough left over to keep her comfortable for years. She signed the contract in a room that smelled of lilies and money and quiet desperation. 3 weeks later, the fertility treatment took hold. The doctors confirmed the pregnancy. 1 month after that, they discovered it was triplets, and the countdown to catastrophe began. If you're feeling Mary's strength already, tap that subscribe button, because this story is about to break before it rebuilds. Jose Rollings was a man who kept his promises, especially the cruel ones. Within 48 hours of Mary walking out of his office, she received a termination notice from the cleaning company. The supervisor, a tired woman named Patricia, who had always been kind to her, could not meet her eyes. I'm sorry, Mary, I'm so sorry. There was a call from someone important. They said if we kept you employed, we'd lose the Rollings Industries contract. That's 40% of our business. I have 16 other workers counting on me. I have children. I can't... I understand. Mary had touched her shoulder gently. You must do what you must do. God will provide. But God's provision, it seemed, would not come easily. The next cleaning company turned her away before she finished filling out the application. Then the next. A restaurant where she had applied for a dishwashing position called to say the job had been filled 2 hours after she interviewed. A laundromat. A nail salon. A daycare center where she had hoped to work surrounded by children. Doors closed, then locked, then disappeared entirely. Jose Rollings had made one phone call to the right people, and Mary Okonkwo had become unhirable in Manhattan. In Brooklyn, in Queens, anywhere his shadow could reach. She moved from the Bronx apartment when she could no longer pay rent. Found a room in a boarding house in a part of Jersey City where ambulances learned not to respond too quickly, because hope was scarce in that zip code. 7 months pregnant with triplets, no job, no insurance, no family within 5,000 miles. Mary began braiding hair. She set up in the corner of a laundromat, advertising her services with a handwritten sign and the memory of Mama Martha's fingers teaching her intricate patterns when she was a girl. $2 for cornrows, $5 for box braids, $7 for something special. Her fingers ached, her back screamed, Her ankles swelled until they looked like bread dough rising. She braided hair until midnight, then cleaned office buildings off the books, cash under the table, for a company that didn't ask questions because they didn't want answers. She ate 1 meal a day to stretch her money. She took prenatal vitamins she bought from a discount pharmacy, praying they contained what the labels promised. She slept on a mattress that dipped in the middle and smelled of other people's sorrows. And every night, she placed her hands on her belly and sang the songs of her childhood. Yoruba lullabies that Mama Martha had sung, hymns from the church where she had been baptized, songs about rivers and mountains, and a God who sees the sparrow fall. "I will not fail you," she whispered to the lives growing inside her. "I will not let you fall." Winter came early that year, and it came without mercy. Mary went into labor on a night when the wind cut through her thin coat like it had personal grievances. She made it to the county hospital alone, clutching her belly, breathing through contractions that felt like being torn apart from the inside. The delivery room was crowded and understaffed. Nurses moved like ghosts, stretched too thin across too many patients. Mary gripped the bed rails and pushed when they told her to push, and screamed when her body demanded she scream. Liam came first, screaming and furious and ready to fight the world. Noah came second, quiet and watchful, his eyes already holding depths that shouldn't exist in someone so new. Sophie came last, small and pink and perfect, her cry the sweetest sound Mary had ever heard. 3 babies. 3 miracles. 3 reasons to keep breathing. Mary held them in her arms, all 3, clustered against her chest. And she wept. She wept for the journey that had brought her here, for the cruelty she had survived, for the grandmother who would never hold these children, for the father who had called them a litter and thrown them away like defective merchandise. "I will be your mother," she whispered against their warm heads. "And I will be your father. And I will give you so much love that you will never feel the hole where he should have been." The hospital social worker came by the next morning, a tired woman with kind eyes and a clipboard full of resources. "Do you have family? Support? A place to go?" Mary looked at her 3 children sleeping in the hospital bassinets. Donated bassinets, charity bassinets, bassinets that had held 1,000 poor babies before hers. "I have everything I need," she said. 5 years passed. In the world of Jose Rollings, those years moved like a slow disease. Clarissa left first. Not for another man. That would have been too simple, too cliché. She left because she had finally realized that Jose's money could not warm the Arctic wasteland of his heart, and she was tired of pretending otherwise. She took half his liquid assets, the Hamptons' house, and his last remaining connection to anything resembling companionship. The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday. Jose signed the papers in his office, alone, then poured himself a bourbon and stared at the Rothko painting until the colors blurred. The company continued to grow. Profits doubled. The board praised his leadership. Business magazines put his face on covers with headlines like "The Man Who Cannot Lose." They should have looked closer. Jose Rollings had won everything and lost something he couldn't name. His penthouse was silent except for the hum of expensive machinery. His refrigerator contained meal-prepped containers from a service that charged $300 a week to ensure he ate nutrients without having to taste anything as mundane as joy. His bed was a California king that had never known warmth. He was 48 years old, and he had no one to call when he couldn't sleep at 3 a.m. No one to share news with, good or bad. No one who would notice if he simply stopped existing. His legacy, the thing he had sacrificed everything for, was an empty name attached to an empire that would be carved up by lawyers and vultures the moment his heart stopped beating. But we will leave him there, in his gray mausoleum of success, and travel across the river to where life actually lived. The bakery on Maple Street in Hoboken had a hand-painted sign above the door. 3 Little Miracles Bakery. The lettering was cheerful and slightly imperfect, the kind of imperfection that speaks of human hands and human love. Inside, the air was thick with cinnamon and nutmeg, and the warm yeast of bread rising. African chin-chin shared display space with American chocolate chip cookies and a French croissants that Mary had learned to make from YouTube videos and sheer determination. A pot of jollof rice simmered in the back for the lunch crowd, because Mary had discovered that New Jersey contained far more people hungry for a taste of West Africa than she had ever imagined. The walls were painted sunshine yellow. Children's drawings hung in frames, stick figures and rainbows, and houses with smoke curling from chimneys. A community board near the door overflowed with business cards, event flyers, and thank you notes from customers. Mary stood behind the counter, older now, with smile lines that hadn't existed 5 years ago. Her braids were twisted into an elegant updo, and her apron was dusted with flour. She was arguing cheerfully with Mr. Patterson, a retired postal worker who came in every morning for coffee and conversation. "Mary, I'm telling you, the Knicks have a chance this year." "Mr. Patterson, you have said this to me for 4 years. Every year the Knicks break your heart. Why do you keep going back?" "Because hope is free, and therapy is expensive." Mary laughed, a sound like bells and honey, and poured him extra coffee because she always did. The door burst open, and a small hurricane entered. Mama, Liam said I can't be team captain because I'm a girl, and that's not fair because I run faster than him and I can do more push-ups." Sophie Okonkwo was 5 years old and already preparing to take over the world. She had her mother's copper skin and her father's gray eyes, though she would never know that second part, and a personality that could fill stadiums. Behind her came Noah, quiet and observant, carrying a library book about planets that was almost as big as he was. He didn't speak much, but when he did, people tended to listen. And finally Liam, who at 5 years old had already appointed himself protector of his siblings, his mother, and anyone else he deemed worthy of his fierce loyalty. "I didn't say she couldn't be captain because she's a girl," Liam protested. "I said she couldn't be captain because she bosses everyone around too much." "That's called leadership, Liam." Sophie planted her hands on her hips. "Mama, tell him." Mary wiped her hands on her apron and knelt to their level. "Leadership is not bossing. Leadership is listening and guiding. And Liam, your sister has as much right to lead as you do. Maybe more, if she works harder at understanding her team." "I always work hard," Sophie said confidently. "Then prove it with actions, not arguments." Mary kissed her forehead. "Now, who wants chin-chin before homework?" 3 hands shot up. Even Noah, who rarely showed excitement, raised his arm. Mr. Patterson watched them cluster around the counter, 3 children who glowed with health and happiness, and the particular confidence that comes from being deeply, unconditionally loved. "You've done good, Mary," he said quietly. "You've done real good." Mary looked at her children, her miracles, and felt the warmth that filled every corner of her life now. "God has done good," she said. "I am just trying to keep up." What do you think Jose deserves when he finally sees what he threw away? Drop your answer in the comments. I want to hear your verdict. The memo landed on Jose's desk on a Thursday morning, buried between acquisition reports and quarterly projections. Maple Street Development Project. Current status: final properties for demolition clearance. Jose barely glanced at it. His company had been buying up blocks in Hoboken for a waterfront luxury development, the kind of project that would displace hundreds of small businesses and families to make room for condominiums that cost more than most people earned in a lifetime. It was business. It was always just business. "Sir?" His assistant, a nervous young man named Bradley who had learned to be nervous, appeared in the doorway. "There's a small issue with the Maple Street properties. One of the tenants is refusing to negotiate." "Then don't negotiate. Execute the eviction clause in the lease and have legal handle it." "That's the thing, sir. This particular tenant. She's become somewhat of a community figure. Local news has started asking questions. There might be optics to consider." Jose hated the word optics. It implied that perception mattered more than power, and he had spent his entire life proving otherwise. "What kind of business is it?" "A bakery, sir, called Three Little Miracles, apparently quite popular." Something flickered at the edge of Jose's memory. A dark feeling, quickly suppressed. "I'll handle it personally. Clear my afternoon." He told himself it was about optics, about demonstrating to his board that he could resolve problems elegantly, about showing the local news that Jose Rawlings was not a villain, but a businessman making reasonable offers. He told himself many things. The Uber dropped him at the corner of Maple Street, and Jose stepped out into a world he had forgotten existed. The sidewalk was cracked, but clean. A bodega on the corner sold lottery tickets and hope. Children played on a stoop while their grandmother watched from a folding chair, her eyes tracking the stranger in the expensive suit. The bakery was halfway down the block, and Jose saw the sign before he saw the door. 3 Little Miracles. The flicker became a flame. The suppressed feeling became a weight. He pushed through the door anyway, because Jose Rawlings did not turn back from anything. The smell hit him first. Cinnamon and something deeper, something that tugged at memories he didn't have. Memories of warmth and home, and meals made with love instead of purchased from services. The color hit him second. Yellow walls covered with children's art. A display case full of pastries that looked like they had been crafted by human hands that cared about the outcome. A community board overflowing with evidence of lives connected, lives supported, lives that mattered to each other. And then he saw her. Mary stood behind the counter, helping a customer select birthday cupcakes. She was wearing a yellow apron over a simple blue dress. Her braids were elegant. Her smile was radiant. She was not broken. Jose had imagined, in the rare moments he allowed himself to imagine anything, that Mary Okonkwo would have been destroyed by now. Homeless. Desperate. Crawling back to beg for scraps. That was the natural order of things when someone defied him. But this woman was glowing. She laughed at something the customer said, and the sound was so foreign to Jose's ears that he almost didn't recognize it. The customer left, bell chiming, and Mary looked up at her next patron. Their eyes met. 5 years collapsed into a single moment. Every cruel word, every thrown document, every threat, and every promise of destruction. Mary's smile did not falter. It transformed, from warmth to winter, from welcome to warning, but it did not falter. Because Mary Okonkwo had become someone who did not falter. "Mr. Rawlings," her voice was calm, controlled, "you are very far from your tower. I own this building." The words came out automatically, defensively. "The entire block, actually. I'm here to discuss your lease." "My lease?" Mary folded her arms. "The one your company is trying to terminate so you can build luxury condominiums for people who have never struggled a day in their lives." "Development is progress. This neighborhood is alive. Your condominiums will be coffins with price tags." The back door burst open. Mama! Noah won't share the colored pencils and I need the blue for the ocean. Sophie erupted into the bakery, all righteous indignation and bouncing braids, followed by Noah clutching his pencils protectively, followed by Liam, who was trying to mediate. They stopped when they saw the stranger. Jose's world ended, and began, and ended again. 3 children, 2 boys and a girl, approximately 5 years old. The girl had gray eyes, his mother's eyes, the eyes he saw in the mirror every morning. But it was Noah who destroyed him. Noah, who looked up at Jose with a face that was a mirror. The same jawline, the same brow, the same quiet intensity that Jose had possessed as a child, before the world had taught him to make it cruel instead of thoughtful. Children! Mary's voice was sharp now, protective. Go to the back, now. But Mama! Now. They went, glancing over their shoulders at the stranger who had made their mother's voice go cold. Jose could not breathe. You kept them. The words were barely a whisper. You kept all 3. They were never yours to keep or discard. Mary's eyes were fire. They are mine, only mine, and you are not welcome here. I have rights. You have nothing. Mary stepped closer, and Jose actually stepped back, something he had not done in decades. You signed away your rights to save money on the contract, remember? Clause 14b, full termination of parental claims in exchange for a reduced compensation package. You wanted efficiency, Mr. Rawlings. You got it. Jose's mind reeled. He barely remembered the contract. His lawyers had drafted it. He had signed it without reading because the details hadn't mattered. The details. His children. I didn't know. You didn't care. Mary's voice cracked, and for just a moment the anger gave way to the grief beneath it. You called them a litter. You threw papers at me. You tried to make me murder 2 of them so your heir would be more convenient. You don't get to stand in my bakery and pretend you didn't know. Jose looked towards the back door, where his children, had disappeared. I can give them everything, he said. The best schools, the best opportunities. You can leave. Mary pointed to the door. Now? Before I call the police and tell them that the man trying to evict me is also the man who tried to coerce me into aborting his own children 5 years ago. Jose left. He came back the next day. And the day after that. Each time, Mary refused to see him. She served customers around him like he was a ghost. She directed her employees to handle any interaction. She built a wall of silence so thick that Jose could feel it pressing against his chest. On the 4th day, he brought a briefcase. $10 million. The bakery went quiet. 3 customers at the tables froze with coffee cups halfway to their mouths. The teenager Mary had hired to work the register dropped a muffin. Jose placed the briefcase on the counter. $10 million, deposited into any account you name. In exchange for, I want to be part of their lives. I want to know them. You want. Mary's voice was quiet, but it carried like thunder. That's always been your problem, Mr. Rawlings. You want, you take, you purchase, you acquire, and when things don't perform to your specifications, you throw them away. I made a mistake. A mistake? Mary laughed, but there was no joy in it. A mistake is putting salt in your coffee. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. You tried to make me selectively terminate 2 of my children because triplets were inconvenient. That is not a mistake. That is a revelation of character. People change. Do they? Mary came around the counter, and now they were face to face. And Jose realized that somewhere in the last 5 years, this woman had become someone he could not intimidate. Tell me, Mr. Rawlings, why do you want to know them now? Is it love? Do you love them? Do you even know their names? Jose opened his mouth. He did not know their names. Mary saw the answer in his silence, and something in her face shifted from anger to pity, which was somehow worse. "You don't want children," she said softly. "You want a legacy. You want someone to carry your name when you are gone. You want to purchase meaning because you cannot create it. That's not..." "The girl's name is Sophie. She wants to be a marine biologist or possibly president. She has not yet decided. The quiet boy is Noah. He reads at a third-grade level, and he is only 5. He wants to understand everything about everything, and I believe he will. The oldest by 4 minutes is Liam. He has already decided he will protect his siblings forever, and he means it with every cell in his body." Mary's eyes were shining now, but not with tears of sadness, with tears of fierce, defiant pride. "They are brilliant and kind and brave. They say please and thank you. They share with children who have less. They know that their worth is not measured in dollars or achievements, but in how they treat others. They are everything you are not, Mr. Rollings, and they became that way because you were not there to teach them otherwise." Jose felt something cracking inside him, something that had been frozen for so long he had forgotten it could break. "I could take you to court," he said, but the threat was hollow, and they both knew it. "You could try." Mary almost smiled. "And my lawyer, a very good lawyer who takes my case pro bono because she believes in justice, would present Clause 14B, the clause where you explicitly waived all parental rights in perpetuity. The clause you signed because it saved you $11,000 on the contract. $11,000, Mr. Rollings. That is the price you put on your children. That is how much fatherhood was worth to you." Jose staggered backward. The briefcase sat on the counter, obscene and useless. "You should take your money and go." Mary returned to her position behind the counter, her armor back in place. "Build your condominium somewhere else. Find another legacy. But you will not buy mine. Not now. Not ever." "Mary. Mrs. Okonkwo." Her voice was ice. "You do not have the right to use my first name. You do not have the right to anything here. Please leave before I have you removed." Jose picked up his briefcase. He walked to the door. He paused with his hand on the handle, and for a moment Mary thought he might say something else. Might find some word that could bridge 5 years and 1,000,000 cruelties. But Jose Rollings had never learned the language of apology, had never been taught the grammar of accountability. He only knew how to acquire and discard, and he had already done both. He left. The bell chimed behind him like a small funeral. Jose sat in his Mercedes for a long time. The leather seats cost more than Mary's first year of rent in Jersey City. The dashboard contained technology that could calculate routes to anywhere in the world. The engine could carry him away from this street, this moment, this unraveling in a matter of seconds. He did not start the car. Through the bakery window he could see them. Mary had brought the children back out, and they were clustered at a table near the front. Sophie was gesturing wildly, telling some story that required her entire body. Noah was listening with that quiet intensity that Jose recognized from old photographs of himself. Liam was watching the door. Watching Jose, though the boy didn't know it, with protective suspicion. Mary brought them hot chocolate, little cups with whipped cream and chocolate shavings. She sat with them, and she laughed at something Sophie said, and she smoothed Noah's hair with absent affection, and she let Liam steal a sip from her own cup. Jose had never had hot chocolate with his mother. His mother had been too busy with charity galas and social obligations. His father had been a shadow in a distant office, much like Jose himself had become. He had been raised by nannies and tutors, and the cold understanding that love was weakness and affection was a transaction. He had built an empire on that foundation. He had built nothing else. The first tear surprised him. Jose Rollings had not cried since he was 11 years old, when his father had informed him that crying was for people who could not control their circumstances, and Rollings' men controlled everything. But circumstance had finally proven stronger than control. The tears came slowly at first, then faster, a dam breaking that had held for 37 years. Jose sobbed in his Mercedes, surrounded by luxury, drowning in emptiness, watching through a bakery window the family he had thrown away because triplets were inefficient. He saw Sophie kiss her mother's cheek before running to get more napkins. He saw Noah showing Mary something in his book, and Mary leaning in with genuine interest. He saw Liam finally relax when he decided the strange man in the car was not a threat. That was what love looked like. Not contracts and clauses, not transactions and terms. Love looked like hot chocolate on a Thursday afternoon. Love looked like genuine interest in a child's book about planets. Love looked like a mother who had crossed oceans and survived destruction and built a kingdom out of cinnamon and determination. Jose had tried to purchase love with $10 million. Mary had created it with flour and faith, and the radical decision to believe that her children deserved better than the man who had fathered them. He started the car. The drive back to Manhattan took 2 hours in traffic, and Jose spent every minute of it in silence. No podcasts, no calls, no noise to drown out the reckoning happening inside his chest. That night, he made a phone call. The Maple Street development. Cancel it. Sir? His assistant's voice was confused. That's a $40 million project. The board. I said cancel it. Find another location. And Bradley? Sir? The bakery on that street. 3 Little Miracles. I want the building deed transferred to the owner, anonymously. No connection to me or the company. Just make sure she owns it. Make sure she can never be evicted. A long pause. Sir, are you... That's all. Jose hung up. He poured himself a bourbon, but he didn't drink it. He just held the glass and watched the city lights through his window, and understood finally that some things cannot be bought back. Some mistakes echo forever. Some losses are permanent by design. 3 weeks later, Mary Okonkwo received a legal document informing her that the building housing 3 Little Miracles Bakery had been transferred to her name, free and clear, by an anonymous benefactor. She stood in her kitchen, holding the deed, and she knew. Of course she knew. But she did not try to find him, did not send a message, did not offer forgiveness or closure or any of the things that might have made Jose feel better about himself. Some gifts are not given for the receiver. They are given because the giver needs to prove they are capable of giving. Mary understood this. She accepted the building because her children deserved security, and she let the silence speak for itself. Jose Rollings drove out of New Jersey that evening and did not return. He left behind a bakery full of warmth, a woman who had refused to break, and 3 children who would grow up knowing they were miracles, not because of their biology, but because of the mother who had chosen them when no one else would. And if you ask what money can truly buy, let this story remind you. It can purchase buildings and businesses and brief appearances of success. But it cannot purchase the warmth of a true home. It cannot manufacture the sound of children laughing over hot chocolate. It cannot create the particular grace of a woman who survived cruelty with her dignity intact. Some things are priceless because they cannot be sold. Some miracles are made, not bought. And some empty men learn this truth too late. If this story moved you, if you felt Mary's strength and Jose's regret, and the fierce love of a mother who refused to let her children be discarded, then share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe if you want more stories that remind us what truly matters. And remember, the most valuable things in life will never have a price tag.